investors that are attracted to this industry like predictability, and they're actually, to some degree, conservative because they're dealing with safety of flight and they're dealing with national defense. If you throw in tariffs that are not predictable, stop, leave the room. I can't do a deal right now. It's a great market. We just need a little bit more comfort that the wheels are not going to come flying off this bus.
Welcome back to the Aerospace Executive Podcast and my quarterly check-in with my good friend and investment banker, Bill Alderman.
Hey, Craig.
Bill is the founder, president of Alderman and Company, and he is the investment banker to know in the small middle market, aviation and aerospace. So thanks for coming back on, Bill.
Great to be back, Craig. I really enjoy doing this. You know that. So
I love having you on.
Thanks. Thank you.
Happy New Year. Well, it's almost February.
Happy New Year-ish. No, it's
Happy New Year-ish.
New Year. I know we've spoken directly, but first podcast since the new year. Yeah, thank you. I think we're all optimistic that 25 will be a good year, right?
I think it will be. People are talking about a super cycle.
Yeah.
In aviation and aerospace.
We've had one. Hey, let's start on a somber note, though, to be respectful, right? Today is the 30th, and yesterday we lost 2 aircraft and 67 souls, right? That's the count, 67. No one on the ground, right? And so I just, we're both aviation guys. When things go 600 miles an hour, things can happen. And, on approach and a helicopter hit that flight last night and they hit each other. I'm not saying anybody hit anybody, but they collided and there's a loss of life. Eventually we'll find out what happened and we'll learn from it, but just a moment of respect, right? You and I are both pilots.
Yep.
Tragedy for the crew and the passengers on board. So just a kind word.
Yeah. I hate the politicization. Whatever the word is, I get politics out of it.
Politics does not belong in air safety.
It has nothing to do with it, and no speculation. Let's wait till the reports come out, and then we'll figure out what happened, and hopefully we can, fix it, and then have another 20-year run.
Yeah.
With 0 commercial deaths.
Yeah, we actually had one like 3 years ago. We had one passenger that got debris out of an uncontained motor failure, right?
Yep.
But we've had a great track record. This is the first real big incident in a very long time.
Yep.
And at the Part 121 level. And it's tragic. And, the reason the NTSB exists is to investigate crashes so that we prevent the next one, right? That's why they exist. And a lot of respect for the people in that organization. And as you said to me once, what is it? One of your pilot manuals in the Navy, every word written in blood. Every word written in blood.
Every word's written in blood.
Right. So
and the big bold print, this book is not a substitute for common sense and good judgment. And I use that a lot with business, et cetera. You can have the manual, but there is no power. There is no power bigger than common sense and good judgment. So.
Correct. But the words in that manual were written in blood, and they're there for a reason, right?
Yes, sir.
So, look, we hope they find out what happened, and we hope we learn from it, and it doesn't happen again. So,
absolutely.
All right. Happier thoughts. Yeah, I think the year ahead could be a great year, and we're seeing some fun stuff. As you know, we're in the middle market, which everybody defines differently. We're typically doing transactions where the dollars that are changing hands are $20 to $150 million in a transaction. And our sort of average is, I don't know, $45 or $50 million average, whatever the numbers are. And in that market, we spent a lot of time in the supply chain, especially both on the A and the D side. And as you know, Craig, we just see things, right? I mean, obviously, we can't talk about confidential private things, but we see things that have themes, right? About supply chains, about labor, about tariffs. We see themes. And so happy to talk with you about the latest themes we're talking about and the conversations we're having with clients, prospective clients, past clients about what's going on in the market. Because there's some pretty interesting things going on. Not all of it's positive, but there's a lot of interesting stuff that's worth talking about. Why don't we start just with high level?
Yep.
Let's talk about some stock prices. And as you know, we don't deal with public companies in terms of like, we're their stockbroker, right? I mean, we legally are a broker dealer, but we don't deal with, the stock or anything related to the stock of Rolls-Royce or GE. But we're in their supply chains, right? And so it's interesting to watch what's going on in their equity markets as some kind of indicator. And I don't know if you've looked at this, but I just checked the numbers a little while ago so that I'd have fresh numbers in front of me for you. GE and Rolls,
All-time high.
dude, they're both up just shy of 100% for the past 12 months. Okay.
Yep.
According to data, I just pulled it off the system. GE is up 94% in 12 months, and Rolls-Royce is up 98% in 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't a bad return on your investment if you're a common stockholder, right? That's pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to talk about why, right? And I know you know why, but for your audience, we can talk about why. And interestingly, right, the S&P, just so we have a benchmark, right? The S&P 500 is up about 24% for the period, give or take, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can talk about why that is, but that's not nearly as exciting to me as being in the A&D space itself. But it's a benchmark, right? So you could argue that GE is really only up 70% more than the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
Still phenomenal. Interestingly, and Boeing's got its own problems. So we're just not going to talk about Boeing as a stock price. We can talk about Boeing, but Boeing's down 16%. So what? We knew that, right? But what's interesting is Lockheed's only up 10%, 9% for the period.
Mm-hmm.
And Northrop's up 8%. I mean, they sort of are moving lockstep, which doesn't surprise anybody. But isn't it interesting that we're in an unstable world? We've got conflict around the world. Maybe we've got a little bit of peace showing up, we hope, in the Middle East. But there's a lot of conflict around the world. And the Trump administration is pushing NATO to spend more, right? I mean, if I understand the math correctly, NATO's meant to spend by their charter 5% of GDP. That's my understanding. And the Trump administration, and I don't do politics, Craig, you know that, right? And I bad at it, and I just don't want to get in, it's like religion. Just, what's the upside to talk to people about my religious views, right? So, but NATO's meant to spend by charter, I think I'm reading facts here, 5% of GDP each nation. Well, that would mean that we got to spend another 40%. Our defense budget of $800 billion is $500 billion short, if I can do the math right. Because 5% of GDP around here is 1.3 trillion. Okay,
it's 3. Yeah, I think the number's 3%.
Is it 5 or 3?
3. I think it's 3% of GDP, and we're still off. But we're still off. And
I could be wrong. You might know more than I do. But the point is that the Trump administration is pushing the NATO allies to pay their fair share, right? Of which basically none of them are. They're all lifting, right? Poland's lifting a lot. Don't blame them, right? It's their border. But everybody's lifting. But if we were to lift to the same level, we'd be well over $1 trillion, right?
Yep.
Okay. So why are Northrop and Lockheed sort of down relative to the market if we're going to be spending more money on defense, right? It's sort of a little like, I'm not sure I get this. And what we're hearing in the market, and then I'll delve into our market, because we don't live in the Lockheed Northrop world. We live in their supply chains. But what we're sort of hearing, and I was down in DC about a week ago talking to some people that, I wasn't talking to Donald Trump, but I was talking to some people that relatively know what's going on. It's the Doge effect, right? It's the uncertainty of Doge that the new administration, and again, I'm not playing politics, I'm stating facts. The new administration wants to reduce government waste, government inefficient spending, right? That's a stated fact. And by the way, what American citizen doesn't want that? You can argue how do you do it, but what American wants you to waste their tax dollars? I don't know too many of those people, right? So if the government's going to try and eliminate waste, there's an argument that Doge, or whatever is the congressional version of it that has the teeth to cut spending, right? Is defense spending going to get cut, even though defense spending probably won't get cut, but our major program's going to get cut? So, for example, we're not going to buy another submarine. We're going to buy 345,000 underwater drones, right? And look, if the Department of Defense really digs into it and thinks that that's a better defense of our nation, as a taxpayer, you can spend a little less and get more bang for your buck. Sign me up, right? And so I think there's a little bit of a hangover on the prime defense contractors that their stocks are not rocketing, pun intended, like Rolls or GE, which are really commercial plays. There's defense work in there, but they're up because of their commercial content, right? There's a little hangover on these defense guys because people are scratching their heads saying, I don't get it yet, right? There's too much noise in the system of, the administration's got to spend more on defense, and they're defense-minded types, so that's good for defense. But this Doge thing and Andrill and drones and whatever, I'm not sure where the money's going, so I'm holding off on these stock buys right now.
Yep, I got you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I sat with some analysts 18 months ago, summer of 2023, at a little coffee shop here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And we went through kind of, they're like, what's happening in A&D? Here's some companies we're looking at. And we're talking about HEICO. I said, unbelievable. Yeah, HEICO had just bought Wencor. And I'm like, you guys, it's a dominant player. You got to look at the themes in this thing. And I spelled out for them the GE thesis. I said, I'm all over GE right now. I think GE stock was about $90 back then.
Yeah.
I said, here's why. It's a de facto monopoly in a lot of ways.
That's a big word, Craig.
Look. This
can we call it a duopoly?
All right, we'll call it a duopoly.
It's really three players, to be fair.
And the reason I'm going to say no is because I was just talking to somebody at Pratt & Whitney today.
Yeah.
And they are their numbers are a mess. This will come out when this podcast comes out. Unfortunately, there's going to be some people that are victims of the mess at Pratt & Whitney. They're having serious issues with MTU and the powdered metals.
Yeah, that's
arena.
Going. That's
and look, I you know this industry as well as I do. It's like, hey, look, the GTF is a great engine when it performs, but if there's questions around it, people are going to buy LEAP.
Look, it's safety of flight and it's grounding of aircraft, and these assets are so expensive. They can't, right? You know this, Craig. Those motors should never get cold, right? Literally, right? In a very profitable airline, she comes to the gate, she gets serviced, and while the motors are still warm, they get fired back up, and she's back in the air, right? That's how you make money with these assets. So, yes, Raytheon Pratt has a lot of work to do, but regardless, call it a duopoly, call it a whatever. But these,
and I'm not pointing fingers anywhere. Look, it's hard. All these engines right now, all the new engines are pushing the boundaries of technology. They run hot, and even
very hot.
Even the LEAP is having its growing pains, and it's like, hey, look, when we're looking for more fuel efficiency out of every engine, and nothing in this industry comes for free, right? It's
correct.
Fuel is, if you spend a little more money in fuel, or you spend a little bit more money in maintenance, your call. It's nothing. There's no free lunch.
Right now, we're still dealing with a hangover of we don't have enough airplanes. Right, there's just not enough lift, and so these motors not only are the new production, but the servicing of these motors is still at peak levels, right? And the servicing of the motors and maintenance contracts can be very profitable. But let's talk about what's down in the supply chain, okay? And what we're seeing down in the supply chain, two things. We continue to see the aftermarket be extremely profitable, right, for commercial aviation. And it's probably going to stay pretty warm for a while, right? Have we reached the peak? Yeah, probably reached the peak. I mean, you can always add nominal inflation, and so things can go up a little bit, right? But in terms of true economics, we may be at the peak, but I don't see a big downturn. And by that, what I mean is it's not going to be tomorrow that Airbus gets its narrow body production up to high numbers. It's not.
Mhm.
And it's not going to be tomorrow that the MAX comes back online to 38 a month. Although, management is saying that they're going to get there. They have a path to it. God bless them. I hope they do.
Yep.
But even if they got to 38 a month, there's a hangover from the pandemic still.
Yeah.
Right? And so we have a long way to get the kind of lift back in the skies that the skies want. Okay, the traveling public ones. So that means the aftermarket's in a very good place. It's going to stay very good. And that to me is why Rolls-Royce and GE are up so much. Yes, new production is coming back online, but it's a very, very healthy operating market. And when you operate airplanes, you need to maintain your engines. Okay.
Yep.
So
I agree.
Good for them. Let's talk about, though, defense, and let's talk about tariffs, because we're hearing a lot of this noise in our client base.
Mhm.
And buyers of, and I'm sure this is true, billion-dollar deals, but we don't do very many billion-dollar deals. We were actually on the HEICO Wencor deal, but we were a junior player. Down in the supply chain, buyers like some level of predictability and certainty. One of the reasons why aerospace and defense is a wonderful market to invest in is some of these things are long-lived programs, right? I mean, if you're making a widget on the B-52, dude, that's a 70-year run for your production line. Right? Am I wrong?
TransDive.
Am I wrong? I mean,
No.
there's certain things on the B-52 that have been upgraded and all the rest, but the landing gear turns based on a crosswind, right? Still does, always did. So if you're on the systems that are managing the actuation of those landing gear, it may have gotten updated a few times, but I bet you if you're on the original production type certificate, you're probably still on it 70 years later.
Absolutely.
God bless, right? God bless. So these are long life programs and weapon systems, right? I mean, when you were flying on aircraft carriers, how old was your airplane and how old was the boat? I'm serious.
Well, let's see. The boat was the boat's razor blades. Now you're shaving with it. It was the USS Ranger. I did her last 2 cruises.
But how old was she when she were landing on her deck? How old was she?
She was commissioned 1960, 1961, 1990, about 30-some years old.
30-year-old boat, right? Okay.
Airplanes were.
How old was your airplane?
I don't know. The airplanes were probably 10 years. Yeah, 5. They weren't that old. They're the last group. But I'll tell you this: on the USS Midway, there is an E-2 Hawkeye. I love it. It's a museum piece,
right?
It's a museum piece. I'm embarrassed to say I did an acceptance flight on that airplane when it came out of depot.
You got hair on your head, but you're old. But the point I'm making is that these systems are not like iPhones. Like, well, there'll be another one out in 6 months, right?
Yeah.
These are major systems that will go years, and so people that are attracted to this industry, not that we're all stuffy and don't like change, but we love predictability. I want to be on a program for 20 years. Well, join the industry, right? You get on the A321 deal right now, you'll be making parts for that thing in 2040, guaranteed, right? All right. So we like stability, and also we're dealing with lives, whether they're military lives or safety of flight. So investors that are attracted to this industry like predictability, and they're actually, to some degree, conservative because they're dealing with safety of flight and they're dealing with national defense. Okay. So in that regard, they like some level of predictability and stability in your projections. And here's where I come to the current discussion about tariffs. When we're selling a company and they've got their projections and they're showing 8% growth or 12% growth, and it's based on this program, that platform, and these delivery schedules, it's like, what's there to worry about?
Yep.
I mean, okay, something major could happen, but I mean, if the world keeps rotating in the same direction, you're probably going to keep shipping these parts. Right. Right. Well, throw in tariffs, okay? Throw in big tariffs. Throw in big tariffs against Europe. I can make a mess of everything, right? So what? I'm not sure it will if they're relatively low tariffs and they're used intelligently, right? I've read some economic papers that make an argument that tariffs cause a one-time jump of price levels,
Mhm.
and then they can create, they don't cause instability, double negative. But if you put a tariff on a good, then what you wind up with is that good on the receiving end is more expensive.
Mhm.
And then if nothing else changes, you're at a price level that is changed, and then everything else is the same. Okay.
Let's just. This is how complex it gets. So this is what makes my brain. I'll take a Bombardier Global Express,
Okay.
made in Canada
Yes, sir.
with GE engines.
GE engines.
Rockwell Collins
Yep.
Avionics.
Yep.
Parker. Yeah, Parker
Fuel-
system.
fuel systems?
Fuel systems.
Yep.
Yeah. What else? It's is it, what
Made
else?
all over the world.
I mean, you talk about, look, the vast majority of it's assembled in Canada,
Right.
a lot of US and a lot of European parts. And then, the vast majority of buyers are American. I'm like, all right, so
Now what? Right.
now what? Now what? And that just shows the complexity of the aerospace supply chain.
So here's what we're hearing in the boardroom, okay,
Mhm.
between a buyer and a seller. Gee whiz, you've got a lot of content going both directions. You got some sales, right, that are ultimately, so you're selling to Bombardier. Great. You're selling a widget to Bombardier. But some of those orders are going to European customers.
Mhm.
Well, if these tariffs go crazy, are those orders going to get canceled?
Might.
Right? If these tariffs go crazy, is that airplane going to get so expensive no one wants to buy it? Right? If these tariffs go crazy, what about your raw materials, some of which you're buying from overseas? Are they going to react to tariffs and raise their prices? Right? So
Mhm.
the problem is that when you're doing mergers and acquisitions, the buyers want to know, how are your projections looking and are they reasonable? If you throw in tariffs that are not predictable, stop, leave the room. I can't do a deal right now.
Yep.
It's not that I don't want to buy your company. It's that no one knows how this Rubik cube, it's three-dimensional chess, and no one knows what tariffs the administration is going to announce tomorrow on Twitter.
Yeah.
And what the response will be from X country as a response.
Yeah, I agree.
And by the way, that Twitter post may be just a negotiating tactic like Colombia, which it appears worked great, right? The Colombians said you can't have what you want, which was, I guess, some transports to land, right?
Mhm.
With returning some citizens, right?
Mhm.
And the Colombian president said, you can't come to my airspace. And the president tweeted or whatever he did about tariffs on Colombia. And then the airplanes are allowed in the airspace. It worked. But who's to say every one of those is not going to result in a retaliatory tariff in response?
Yeah, it's a mess. And this is where look, I lean a little bit more conservative, but I look at the political thing. I go look at Europe, Canada, US. There is a general respect for IP across the Western world.
International law.
International law and respect for IP. And I won't name names, but there's one country out there that has not respected IP very much, and it has subsidized every industry, and it is now, and I think that's kind of where you look at AVIC,
Yep.
using
Yep.
a lot of US parts, which are, how long is that China going to be a Boeing or Airbus customer?
Right.
Probably not very long. I mean, if I was Boeing, I wouldn't be counting on a whole lot of 737s being sold. Yeah.
Correct. No, look, I believe, look, it's been publicly stated that the current administration's tariff agenda is predominantly aimed at China. And that's not a secret. And that's not a political comment on my part. That's stating the fact of what the administration has said.
Mhm.
And the issue for us in the middle market of A&D doing M&A is not, do we like it or not, or agree with it or not? It's what's its impact on our business, right?
Bingo. Yep. Yep.
And the impact on our business is it's creating uncertainty
Mhm.
for buyers and sellers, and that's slowing things down a little bit. Now, well, it's hard for me to say I believe this. I can only do this anecdotally. We are seeing a dramatic change in the level of uncertainty.
Mhm.
Right after the election, there was a massive amount of uncertainty because the president talked about some of these things while he was campaigning.
Mhm.
It wasn't like he got elected or became president and all this stuff came out of the woodwork. These were some of his campaign pledges, right? So it's not like it's news. But when he won the election, people could say, okay, he's elected. If he does what he says he's going to do, these things are going to impact our market, right? So
Yep.
the level of uncertainty went up exponentially election night. Okay,
Mhm.
once it was known he was going to win or predicted he was going to win. And then the uncertainty went through the roof. And so our phones were ringing and not ringing with people saying, hey, Bill, we don't know what to do with this. Right.
Mhm.
And our response would be, yeah, Donald Trump didn't call me last night to tell me where this is going. Right. So I don't
Yeah.
know either. It's interesting that up to the inauguration date, the level of uncertainty sort of the level of uncertainty was stable. Okay.
Yep.
Since he's been elected and some of these things are coming out and they appear to be more negotiating tactic and much less draconian. I mean, there's some statements that were out there about massive tariffs on Canada, right? Massive tariffs on Mexico, right? Massive.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
I mean, like shutting down trade comments, right?
Right.
Which people didn't know if they were serious or not because they didn't know.
Well, you can't not believe it. I mean, yeah, they're like, yeah, is this a little bit of negotiating? Well, I got to take the.
We don't know.
You don't know,
right?
Yeah.
And look, business people love predictability, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's who we are.
Of course.
And especially in A and D, there's an enhanced level of desire to have some predictability, right?
Mhm.
And so what we've seen, and look, the inauguration was what, 10 days ago? Right?
Yep.
What we've seen in the past 10 days is an actual calming down of concern. It's not that it's gone away at all. When we're
Right.
at meetings today, it's still, hey, what do you think about this tariff? Right? It's there. But people are more like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. Okay, 10% tariff on Colombia. Oh, that was just to get those transport on the ground. Okay, that's cool, right? And so it's not to say it's not a concern right now, but the
Mhm.
level of concern is dramatically reduced. And I was talking with a person 2 days ago who very much wanted the other person to win the election. They politically are just, they're a Democrat, a strong Democrat. God bless them. It's America, right? But they made a comment to me of, as a business person, right? They want the administration to be wildly successful, right? I mean, what American doesn't want a strong economy, a strong defense, and the government to work well? I mean, right? I mean, I want my tax dollars to be spent well. I want national defense. I want things around the country to work. I want to live in a great America, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And so whether you're on any side of the spectrum, right? And this person made this comment. I want the president to be successful because that way my business can do better. I mean, just
Yeah.
being selfish.
Well,
right?
that's the whole. Yeah. Look, that's the way it is with every administration. This is what This is the. Everybody. My candidate didn't win, so I'm the resistance. It's like, wait a minute.
You live here. It's your
Let's let it play
backyard.
out. It's like, that's like shooting your pilot at 30,000
No.
feet because you don't like him. Yeah,
Right.
it's hey, look, let's hope for the best, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
what we are seeing is still heightened uncertainty in the boardroom
Mhm.
of all the things that the president could or couldn't, administration could or couldn't do, how that's going to affect business. And it's not calmed down yet. I think the level of concern is coming down,
Mhm.
and I'm optimistic that it will continue to come down.
Yep.
Because that would be good for the M&A practice. And we have a number of clients that, since the pandemic, since this, since that, I wanted to sell my company 8 years ago. Come on, Bill, let's get on with it, right?
Yeah.
And we are in a good place. I mean, defense spending is going up. Nobody's saying it's going down. Okay. Certain programs may get cut, but spending's going up. Okay.
Yep.
The Hill is in favor of defending this nation. We all believe we've got real threats. Okay.
Yep.
Commercial aviation is in a wonderful spot. It really is. Tragically, we had an incident a couple of days or yesterday, but apart from that sad tragedy, the industry is in a phenomenally wonderful place. And so it's a great market. We just need a little bit more comfort that the wheels are not going to come flying off this bus.
So let me ask you something different. A lot of suppliers to Boeing, Textron. Textron, Boeing just went through their strikes.
Yep.
Solved now.
Yes.
But a lot of suppliers, tier 2, tier 3, they're flush with inventory. They're not, it's, cash management is the word of the day.
Yes.
And what's going to happen there? Is that eventually, is the rat eventually going to, flow through that snake, or what? How long is that all going to take? And how much are these suppliers' valuations affected?
So you're talking about the inventory stuck down in the supply chain?
Yeah, a lot of your structures, your structures guys, your people building bulkheads and major assemblies,
And they're sitting on WIP. That's their concern, right?
Yep.
It's a legit concern, and mostly on the commercial side, right? We're talking about WIP, mostly for Boeing, that's still stuck. Airbus a little bit. Is that really what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Look, we've talked to suppliers as well that Airbus is not shipping the way they're supposed to be, and they were ramping up capacity, people, facilities, inventory. I think it's going to be a little while, I really do, before that comes out. I mean, Boeing says they've got a path to 38. Okay, great. Go slow, guys. Don't slip up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather you be at 34 for a long time and do a great job, make great products, than get to 38 and have another, right, door blow off. So guys, go slow and do it right. And if that's what's going to happen, which I think it is, it's going to take a while before that supply chain just is able to, as you say, the snake digests the rat. Look, as long as interest rates don't go too high, Colin Powell said, Colin Powell, I love the way that I said Colin Powell.
J Powell.
I know. It shows you where my head's at, right? Who's my hero? Who do you think is my hero?
There you go.
Sorry. The Secretary of the Treasury said he's not going to lower. They are not lowering rates right now because they don't see the need and other things. And look, stable rates are okay, right? You're sitting on WIP and rates are stable. You can deal with that. I don't see it, but if rates trip up, now you got some real problems because these suppliers you're talking about are not sitting on cash, and they're not sitting on big bank lines, and the bank lines they have are not cheap. And so the people that can least afford to carry this inventory, this, are the ones that are carrying it, right? And even Boeing, with all its problems, pays pennies on the dollar for debt relative to what these guys do. So it's backwards, right? It always has been. I think if rates stay where they are and the production rates slowly come up, I think we're going to be fine. Production rates don't come up and interest rates go up, I think you're on to a concern, Greg.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's got me a little bit scratching my head in that mid-tier market. A lot of these guys, they're already, they're paying 12, 14%. Yeah, interest rates. I want to get into the money lending business, so that's the case. But they're paying huge interest rates, and then they're 60, 90, 120-day payment, net payment terms. So, whoa.
And I don't want to name some of these tier ones, but let's just say tier ones. When we're selling companies, obviously we're deep in the weeds of these numbers, and we're looking at companies and we see their accounts receivable, and they're like 97 days on average. And they're like, yeah, we worked really hard to get the number that low. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Well, these are our customers. I'm like, those are blue chip. Those guys have more cash than God. Why are you waiting 97 days for your money? And they're like, Bill, if we weren't on the phone every single day, it would be well over 150 days. They don't pay us. I'm like, that makes no sense. None. I mean, what happened to 30-day terms?
I can feel some of their pain. Let's put it that way.
But what happened to 30-day terms? How about net 20, right?
The big guys are letting the little guys, finance their supply chains.
Which just makes no sense because that's the inverse of where the costs are. Right? Costs are cheaper the bigger you go.
Yeah.
The system is flawed. I couldn't agree with you more.
That's crazy. So tariffs, interest rates, I don't see interest rates coming down.
Well, the secretary just said they're not going to bring them down right now. And one of the reasons he said was the uncertainty of fiscal policy. If you listen to the words in the speech, I don't think it was that political of a speech, but his comment was that we don't know what the administration is going to do fiscally. And so we don't know if that's going to be inflation or anti-inflationary. He's right. You know, you lay off or you get what do they call it? Severance packages. You know, you have tens of thousands of federal workers that leave the workforce. Well, is that inflationary? If you got to pay them those big bonuses to get them out the door, is that for that month inflationary? What are we doing here, right? And so I think interest rates could move if certain fiscal policies are thrown in place that the Treasury believes are going to cause them to have to raise interest rates.
I can tell you exactly what I'm doing with my money.
What?
I'm sitting on the sidelines.
Cash.
Yeah. I've been looking at bonds. Some bonds are good. Yeah, they're selling
You
it.
should have been in Rolls Royce for the past 12
I am. Well, not Rolls Royce, but GE. And GE I like. There's another little engine company out of FTI was another one that I was picking up some a long time ago, and I'm very happy with that.
Good for you.
Not thinking Muddy Waters research right now, but I'm still way up. So I like it, but I just don't see. I'm sitting on the sidelines because I don't know. The Trump effect of 2016. You could just see it wasn't gonna happen.
Look, Craig, but you're echoing my words, right?
Yeah, I am echoing your words.
Which
totally.
is there's uncertainty here, and you want to be in cash right now. And if you, instead of being someone that buys publicly traded stocks and bonds, if you were in a PE shop or you were in corporate development at a big corporation, you'd be like, guys, maybe we don't want to pull the trigger right now because there's too much uncertainty. We're seeing it come down pretty quick. Okay, it's not gone, but from where it was just 3 weeks ago, it's a lot less.
Yeah,
I'm optimistic that we'll get better visibility into what the administration is really up to in the near term, especially on the defense industry. I think it will help the players in the defense industry and the defense industrial base perform. And now I'm going to make a closing comment about national defense, not about my business. The defense industrial base in the United States is not strong enough. I mean, as an American citizen who loves my country, our defense industrial base is weak. It's not weak. We're not about to get invaded. We don't have any bullets, but we are not at our best. Okay. We are not at our best. And we have the ability, without, I think, a lot of change, to get a whole lot better. And what I mean by that is making it in the US affordably and well, right, for the US defense infrastructure. And the US DIB was, for whatever reason, and forget the politics, it just wasn't nurtured over the past X number of years. And I don't mean 4 years, I mean like 20 years. It hasn't been nurtured the way she should be. And I believe there's an opportunity for us to invest in the DIB, to have our defense industrial base be a key national asset, not only that defends our nation better and cheaper than it has been, but also employs a lot of Americans in wonderful, well-paying jobs.
I agree with that. Inflationary, though.
You might be
inflationary.
Right. You might be right, Greg.
But no, I say that sarcastically. No, you might be right. Look, I'm in the people business, and I think I'll just put it down this way: the incomes of Middle America, globalization was not good for the American worker. Globalization drove real income down. For the last. I think going back to the end of Bush, beginning of Obama, through Obama, Trump, Biden, that's got to change. We need more skilled workers, which means we need to start driving the skills of these young kids coming up. When you talk about shipbuilding, that's a big thing. And we need to bring shipbuilding, submarine building.
Correct.
It's a big thing.
Correct.
And right now, the challenge the country has is going to be skilled workforce, and driving the skilled workforce to does the world go from internal combustion to EV? It might, But let's take those internal combustion people that are building internal combustion cars
Yep.
and shift them to defense. We could readily do it, readily train them up.
Yep.
But that's got to take, a lot of courage, a lot of political courage for people to, to drive the right programs that encourages people to do that.
Agreed.
I'm with you.
But there will be a lot of opportunity for people to get hired to help run these organizations, which might be good for your business, Craig Picken.
I'm very bullish on people. I'm very bullish on unskilled workers. I want to see everybody do well. I want to see everybody do well. I mean, that's,
I know, but your business, you have a very good niche, finding the right people for these companies that we deal with all the time. And the older I get, and I'm getting pretty old now, Craig, great companies have great leadership, and companies that are failing typically, I heard this the other day, and I love this expression. Most companies fail by suicide, not homicide. Most companies fail by suicide, not homicide.
So I have a theory, and we could, the A player and the B player. The A player, everybody knows the A player. They get results.
Yep.
A players do not like to work with B players. B players drag them down. But worse, and this is what companies need to understand, is that A players don't want to work for B companies unless they're there to turn them around
and make them into A company.
And I'll give you a great example of a conversation I had. I still remember the conversation at Lahaina's in Pacific Beach, California, with a good friend of mine who's founded a $1 billion company. And he said, I keep getting these calls to go be the COO. And they always say we have a weak CEO who needs a strong number two. And his answer back was then call the strong number two. When you're ready to hire number one, the number one, I'll take the job. It's about the right people in the right place at the right time, and the country needs that right now.
Yes, sir. And you're the man, Craig. A lot of respect, Craig.
I try to be. Well, you're the man. I appreciate I appreciate you coming on, talking about all the important things. Look, it's where we are at tariffs. It's all the things that should be at top of mind of everybody right now.
Correct.
And in respect to Pratt & Whitney, I was talking more on the commercial engine side of the house. They still make a great business jet engine, as does Honeywell and Williams. So there we go.
Nice plug.
All right,
man. Great to see you.
Cool, buddy. We'll do it again next quarter.
I'll see you next quarter. Same bat channel, same bat time.
Fly safe, Bill.
Be well, my friend.
Talk soon.